So before I start, I wanted to say that the original anticipatory set that I had planned won't work like this because I originally thought that I was going to have my family help me record this with me, but they don't want to help me. So my original plan was to get their attention by putting a piece of tape on the carpet, and I would tell them that this is a fence and a fence is used to separate things, and I would put a lot of toys and maybe some stickers on one side of the fence, and I would say I want all of my friends with brown eyes to come and join me on this side of the fence, and all of my blue-eyed friends can stay on that side of the fence. And they would get frustrated, and then after a minute of them, they're all playing on their side of the fence, I would say, okay, and now I want all of my friends with long hair to come on this side of the fence, and all of my blue-eyed friends can go over there. And I would assume by then somebody would get a little frustrated, and if not, I would say, okay, everybody come join me on the carpet, and then we do this next part. Okay, thank you for joining me on the carpet, my friends. When I took that piece of tape and I separated our class and told you it was a fence, and I said that only people with brown hair or people with long hair could come on my side of the fence where we had toys and games, how did that make you feel? Sad, frustrated, probably angry, right? For friends who didn't get to play on the fun side of the fence. And for our friends who were on the good side of the fence, you were probably excited until you had to go to the other side of the fence, right? Right. So, do you think it was fair for me to separate our class based on our eye color or our hair length? You're right, my friends, that wasn't fair. That is not a good way to separate our class and say who gets to play with toys or not, right? Yeah, so in the 1960s, back when your grandparents were probably growing up, the entire country was separated based on the color of our skin. So white people kept themselves separated from black people because black people had dark skin. This was called segregation. And back when your grandparents were growing up, black people weren't allowed to use the same facilities that white people were able to. So they would have separate doctor's offices, bathrooms. You see here we've got men, women, and colored bathrooms. This would be on a smart board, but I don't have a smart board. Cafe or a restaurant. See, they have a separate entrance here for colored people. Water fountain, waiting rooms, and even our parks were separated, where young black children weren't able to play in the same parks as white children. And this separation of our country was called segregation. And it was much like what we did in our class, where we had a fence that separated us. They put up a fence between black people and white people. Those were real pictures from the 1960s when your grandparents were growing up. They were probably your age. So I want you to remember those pictures, and I want you to remember how you felt when we separated our class by that invisible fence while we read the story, The Other Side by Jacqueline Woodson. This is The Other Side, written by Jacqueline Woodson and illustrated by E.B. Lewis. That summer, the fence that stretched through our town seemed bigger. We lived in a yellow house on one side of it. White people lived on the other. And Mama said, "Don't climb over that fence when you play." She said it wasn't safe. My friends, why would Mama say it wasn't safe to climb on the fence? And remember the pictures I showed you before we started reading in our discussion about what life was like in the 1960s. Because they could fall and get hurt, that's true, they could fall and get hurt, but why else do you think Mama would say it's not safe to climb over the fence? Because of segregation? That's a good answer. Let's keep reading to see. That summer, there was a girl who wore a pink sweater. Each morning she climbed up on the fence and stared over at our side. Sometimes I stared back. She never sat on that fence with anybody, that girl didn't. So we see here that our narrator is black, and she met a white girl on the other side of the fence. I wonder why the white girl is looking over at her side of the fence. Maybe we'll find out. Once when we were jumping rope, she asked if she could play, and my friend Sandra said no without even asking the rest of us. I don't know what I would have said. Maybe yes, maybe no. Why do you think that Sandra said that the white girl couldn't play with them without even asking the rest of the friends? It could be that Sandra's mean, you're right. Maybe she doesn't like her, that's another choice. Or maybe because it's not safe, you're right. Maybe Sandra's mom also told her that it's not safe to play on the other side of the fence. Maybe she was afraid. That's a good answer too. That summer, everyone and everything on the other side of the fence seemed far away. When I asked my mama why, she said, because that's the way things have always been. Sometimes when me and Mama went into town, I saw that girl with her mama. She looked sad, that girl did. Don't stare, my mama said. It's not polite. It rained a lot that summer. On rainy days, that girl sat on the fence in a raincoat. She let herself get all wet and acted like she didn't even care. Sometimes I saw her dancing around in puddles, splashing and laughing. Does the white girl here look scary or unsafe to be around? It looks to me like she's dancing and laughing and having a good time. Yeah, she doesn't look scary. I wonder if our narrator thinks she's scary. Maybe we'll find out on the next page. Mama wouldn't let me go out in the rain. That's why I bought you rainy day toys, my mama said. You stay inside here where it's warm and safe and dry. But every time it rained, I looked for that girl, and I always found her somewhere near the fence. It sounds to me like our narrator isn't afraid to play with the white girl. It sounds like she wants to go outside and play with her, but her mom doesn't want her to, right? Someplace in the middle of the summer, the rain stopped. When I walked outside, the grass was damp and the sun was already high up in the sky, and I stood there with my hands up in the air. I felt brave that day. I felt free. I got close to the fence and that girl asked me my name. Clover, I said. My name's Annie, she said. Annie Paul. I live over yonder, she said. By where you see the laundry, that's my blouse hanging on the line. She smiled then. She had a pretty smile. Now we know that our narrator's name is Clover, and this is Annie. Annie said she lives over yonder, and that means in the distance or way over there. And then I smiled, and we stood there looking at each other, smiling. It's nice up on this fence, Annie said. You can see all over. I ran my hand along the fence. I reached up and touched the top of it. A fence like this was made for sitting on, Annie said. She looked at me sideways. Mama says I shouldn't go on the other side, I said. My mama says the same thing, but she never said nothing about sitting on it. Neither did mine. Let's make a prediction. Do you think Clover is going to join Annie on the fence? Some of you say yes, some of you say no. Remember your prediction and let's see what happens. That summer, me and Annie sat together on that fence, and when Sandra and them looked at me funny, I just made believe I didn't care. Some mornings, my mama watched us. I waited for her to tell me to get down from that fence before I break my neck or something, but she never did. I see you made a new friend, she said one morning, and I nodded, and Mama smiled. That summer, me and Annie sat on that fence and watched the whole wide world around us. One day, Sandra and them were jumping rope near the fence, and we asked if we could play. I don't care, Sandra said. And when we jumped, Sandra and me were partners the way we used to be. Why do you think Sandra let Annie join their game of jump rope? It could be because Clover likes her. Maybe it's because she says she isn't mean, yeah? She could want to be friends with Annie now that she sees Clover being friends with Annie. I wonder if Sandra will join them when they sit on the fence. When we were too tired to jump anymore, we sat up on the fence, all of us in a long line. Someday somebody's going to come along and knock this old fence down, Annie said. And I nodded. Yeah, I said, someday. When they say they want the fence to come down, what do you think they mean? Take some time and talk with your neighbor to see if you can think of what they mean when they say they want the fence to be knocked down. Think about our activity earlier today and the pictures we looked at before we read the book. So now that we finished our story and we had some time to turn and talk to our neighbors, what do you think they meant when they said they wanted the fence to come down? They wanted the literal fence to come down? That is a very plausible answer, but I want you to think and remember about what we talked about before we read the story, when we looked at those pictures from the 60s of the separated bathrooms and the separated hospitals, and we saw that the hospitals and restaurants and water fountains and bathrooms that Black people had access to were nowhere near as great as the ones that the white people did. And we said that was really unfair, right? And then when we had our classroom activity and I separated us based off of our eye color and our hair length, we said that wasn't really fair too. So what do you think that the fence means? That they want to stop being separated. And do we remember what we said was the word for when we're separated by our skin color? Segregation. That is right, my friends. So we're going to stand up and go back to our seats and open our personal dictionaries, and we're going to write down our own definition of segregation and a picture that will help you remember the definition, because we want to remember that segregation is keeping people separated by the color of their skin. And your picture can be about the book we just read, it can be about the pictures we saw, or maybe something in your life that reminded you that will help you remember the word segregation. And when you're done, we're going to all take a gallery walk and look at each other's photos. Okay? Let's get to it.